Hi everybody, my name is Sandra Steingraber and I occupy the anti-fracking wing of the climate justice movement. I bring you warm greetings from the snowy shores of Seneca Lake, where an uprising of brave citizens, winemakers, nurses, farmers, teachers, veterans, chefs, moms, dads, granddads, and great-grandmothers are peaceably standing up to a Houston-based gas company called Crestwood, which seeks to turn our beloved lakeshore into a massive gas station for the products of fracking. It's a plan that threatens not only the climate, but a source of drinking water for 100,000 people. And that contested lakeshore is our Greensboro lunch counter in the Finger Lakes. But I left the shores of Seneca Lake to join you on the banks of the mighty Hudson, not as a partisan of that struggle, nor as a co-founder of New Yorkers Against Fracking, which is how you may know me. Today I'm casting off those hats and speaking to you out of two more foundational identities, as a biologist and as a mother. Now for me, biology and motherhood are deeply intertwined. My own mother was also a biologist, and because I was her adopted daughter, she wanted me to see that the whole living world and all the flora and fauna contained therein was a family tree for me. And thus my first memory is cracking open fossils with my mom on the front stoop of our house. And that project gave me a sense of ancestry. By age 6, I had straightened out all my little friends on the question of where babies came from. And by 9, I had my own microscope. And with these gifts from my mother came lessons about the interconnectivity of creation. 1 out of every 3 bites of food that we eat is brought to us by the efforts of insect pollinators. And the oxygen in 1 out of every 2 breaths of air that we breathe in a pint of atmosphere with every breath. That's brought to us by the ocean's plankton, via the miracle of photosynthesis. And in turn, we animals and humans exhale carbon dioxide, which has the power to trap the sun's heat, and so keeps us warm at night, preventing the oceans from freezing over and our blood plasma from freezing solid every time the sun goes down. And that perfect balance of oxygen and carbon dioxide that plants and animals give to each other allows living organisms to sustain the conditions of life that makes more life in the future possible, which is why environmental attorney Joe Guth reminds us that a functioning biosphere is worth everything we have. Now that I have kids of my own, and I'm a mother myself, and now that I make my living as a systems ecologist, here's what I can tell you. By trying to run our economy by shattering the bedrock of our nation to exhume oil and methane, which is natural gas, via fracking, we are destroying and poisoning the drinking water of our nation that lies in the aquifers deep below our feet. And because methane is a powerful heat-trapping gas that cannot be wholly contained in the piles of rubble that's left over from these fracking operations, we are tipping the balance of heat-trapping gas, oxygen, carbon dioxide, and methane, and so exacerbating climate in the atmosphere high above our heads. At the same time that we urgently need to be coming up to the rescue with renewable energy. I can tell you as a biologist that fracking is not safe. There's no evidence to suggest that, and it looks like it cannot be made safe through any regulatory structure. That's what the science shows, and those scientific findings are a direct threat to my own 2 children, who are 65% water by weight, and whose safety today depends on safe sources of drinking water, and whose future tomorrow depends on a functioning pollinator system to provide them food and thriving plankton stocks to provide them oxygen. The science shows that these pollinators and these plankton stocks are now in trouble because of the excess amount of heat-trapping gases that we're loading up the atmosphere with. Hence, it's my job as a mother to engage with the biological consequences of climate change, because it's my job as a mother to protect my kids from harm and plan for their future. And I can't do my job as a mother in a fractured America. I can't do it. I can tell you what I saw in Romania, where I was invited to give a lecture on the public health impacts of fracking, and where my 12-year-old son and I were both pepper sprayed by military police acting as a private security force by a fracking operation run by the U.S. company called Chevron. An old woman looked at me while this was happening and said, "We waited 50 years for you Americans to come, and you brought Chevron with you." And then she explained to me our foreign policy and geomilitary objectives vis-a-vis Russian gas. That old woman explained that to me while standing there, and that has everything to do about this election today.
Yeah.
I can tell you what I saw at the climate treaty negotiations in Paris last December, where renewable energy CEOs and their would-be financiers urged political leaders to please give them a clear, strong signal that indicates that the energy revolution has now begun, so that financial instruments can be created so that capital can flow to renewable energy solutions. And I saw climate scientists from all over the world assembled there to say, yes, that needs to happen, and the science tells us that we are out of time, and that clear political signal must come now. So as a biologist, I am looking for a presidential candidate who can be realistic about the science, which says that we cannot frack our way to climate stability, and we must have renewable energy solutions now. That's the realistic science.
Yeah.
And as a mother, I'm looking for a presidential candidate who can recognize an emergency when they see one, who knows, as the poet Audre Lorde tells us, that the master's tools will never dismantle the master's house. And as a citizen of this nation, I'm looking for a presidential candidate who knows that a government tasked with ensuring security and domestic tranquility cannot do its job when seawater is sloshing through New York's subway tunnels and vineyards of grapevines, which is the economic goose that lays the golden egg in my part of New York, have to compete with flare stacks, compressor stations, and pipelines. And when we keep the lights on by shoveling fossil fuels in ovens and light them on fire, and so threatening to tear up what Abraham Lincoln called our nation's salubrious climate that makes agriculture possible. In 1979, my mother and I became co-cancer patients together. And she had some advice to me. Her prognosis was worse than mine. She said, "Don't let them bury you until you're dead." And she was 46 years old at the time. She's defied all predictions. She's outlived 3 oncologists, and she's now 85 years old. Advice to Bernie Sanders and the campaign and to all of you. We're not here to express our hope and our wish for a strong, clear signal on renewable energy from the executive office. We're here to make it so. We're here to change Providence. That's the spirit that allowed New Yorkers against all odds to evict the frackers from our state and ban fracking now and forevermore. Against all odds, fellow New Yorkers, let's help elect the nation's first keep-it-in-the-ground president, willing to defend our bedrock, our water, our climate from those who would throw our own children under the bus to line their fossilized pockets. Let's make it so.